Welcome to the Meant to Be Outdoors podcast, where our goal is to connect listeners to the great outdoors, with hosts Brian Hoffmeyer and Ben Brandell.
I'm host Ben Brandell, owner of Meant to Be Outdoors, instructor of outdoor skills, and passionate about personal growth.
I'm host Brian Hoffmeyer, wildlife biologist and avid outdoorsman. Welcome back to another episode of the Meant to Be Outdoors podcast. It is Myth Monday today. Ben and Brian are here. We've got another awesome topic for you guys. We're getting a little creepy crawly. Maybe we should have done this one in the fall, but we just couldn't wait because we hear it all the time. Today we are talking about daddy long legs. Not mommy, but daddy long legs. So Ben, I have to ask you, describe to our audience, describe to our listeners, when you were a kid, what you were taught of daddy long legs was. What did that look like if you were to try to just describe it so somebody could draw it for you?
Most of the time, I would see 1 to 2. There'd be usually multiple.
Yeah.
Rarely just saw one. But it'd be a singled, round, brown body.
Oh,
about the size of a pea, maybe a little bit bigger, but it's brown, not green. And really long legs.
Really long, spindly,
Yeah.
almost hair-like legs.
Yes, very. The legs definitely stand out. And when they walk, it's almost, to me, like slow motion, even though they're moving pretty quick. But I think because their legs are so long, it just seems to be like they're somewhat walking slow.
Yeah, and everybody calls them daddy long leg spiders. Daddy long leg spiders.
What?
But they actually are not spiders, and they're not called daddy long legs. So people are pretty twisted on this one. They are called Harvestmen, and they are not a spider at all because they don't even have the credentials. We'll call it credentials to be a spider. A spider has to have 6 to 8 sets of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have 8 legs and 2 body segments. So we're going to call it a harvestman. We're going to call it the right thing now. A harvestman, previously referred to as a daddy long legs, does it have 2 body segments in the description you just gave?
It doesn't. It's just one.
Just one pea. One little pea-sized body. Does it have 8 legs? It actually has more if you were to look at it. Some of them are actually kind of like antennae, but they're not on their head. And they only have 1 set of eyes. So, it's not a spider. Well, everybody's calling daddy long leg spiders. There's another myth that goes with them, and everybody says not only are the daddy long leg spiders, but people say that they're the most venomous spider in the world.
Well, I've heard that a lot. That's where you get into all the craziness. I've heard, they can kill elephants, so they can, if they could bite an elephant.
I mean, I've had them crawling on my face, and I'm all good.
Right. I've also heard, and this was back in like the days of school, your middle school. A kid said, if a daddy long legs could bite a baby in between its toes where it's the softest skin, it could kill that baby.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many. I've heard so many.
So, 1, they're not venomous.
Correct. Because?
They don't have venom glands. They literally don't exist. They don't have venom glands.
Right.
2, they can't bite you. Their mouths, they don't have fangs or big mouths to bite you. 3, they're not spiders.
Right, exactly. They're
4,
not spiders.
They're not daddy long legs. Daddy long legs is actually a common name for a long-legged cellar spider, which we have tons of in our garage, basement, wherever you are. Everybody has cellar spiders. A lot of people mistaken those for brown recluses.
Right.
But they're more spindly than that. That is an actual daddy long-legged spider, and it is a true spider, but the real name for it is a long-legged cellar spider, but daddy long legs is a common name for that. So, the harvestman is not a spider, and it's definitely not venomous. So, Ben, what is it? Tell the listeners, what is a harvestman if it's not a spider?
So, it is an opilion.
Opilion, that's
and
right.
That word gets me, but it is an opilion. But they are scavengers, and that's something I learned a long time ago. And the reason I even looked into that is because I had a group of kids. This was way back in the day, guiding some trips, doing some summer camps.
I know where you're going with this.
Had a group of kids, and they ran up to me saying that this spider, which we've just learned is not a spider, right? That this spider, this opilion.
So they were holding a harvestman.
They were holding a harvestman, an opilion. They were holding it, and they said, this tastes like sour apple. And I looked at him and I'm like, did you eat it? Because now I'm kind of like, oh my gosh. Because remember, if it was a spider, it might cause some problems.
I do love a good sour apple.
They said it tasted like sour apple. I'm like, did you eat it? They're like, no. No, we licked the bottom of its belly. They call it the belly. They licked the bottom of it. Which I'm in like distress. Like, okay, now what's going to happen here in 5 minutes, in an hour, or what's happening?
Is that before or after you knew that they weren't venomous spiders?
Well, this is all before.
Okay.
Again, didn't know it wasn't a spider. Didn't even know that these opilions, these harvestmen.
So you still had that little bit of thought in your mind, well, maybe this is the world's most venomous spider.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, for all. Yeah. Yeah. I just know, why in the world would they be licking its belly? I'll just call it the underside. Why are they licking the
There
underside?
used to be that show, kids say the darndest things. Well, they definitely do the darndest things.
But what happened is that triggered multiple. Then other kids like, oh, I want to try it too, which trying to shut that down and keep that from happening can be tough,
Well,
especially in the...
Did you ever try it?
No! You kidding me?
Why not?
Because
Jump on the bandwagon.
Because I didn't know why it would taste like sour apple, but after doing some research and finding that they are scavengers, eating dead things, also possibly feces.
They eat poop.
They eat poop.
They do.
I'm like, well, it's probably from something they've been crawling around on and eating, right?
Yeah.
So I was grossed out, and from there on, that's what I just share is we don't need to lick and we don't need to eat, okay? But yeah, that's the Harvestmen, the single-bodied opilion.
Opilion. Very good. Yeah. So they are scavengers. Again, they're going around eating feces and dead things. So they're an important part of our ecosystem. I know a lot of people, their first reaction is to smash or to get rid of that thing because they think it's a big harmful spider, and it's really not. So
Right.
I would suggest leaving them be. If you see it in your house, grab it, throw it outside. It's not going to hurt you.
But
Grab it and throw it
outside,
out.
after my eyes have been opened to all of that, now watching and looking for them, I have found like I'll call it a mass of them, a group of them, a lot of them, at the side of the road, like eating maybe a grasshopper that was dead, but they're all piled up on scavenging, which I'd never realized that before. I'd never seen that, or
Right.
even cared to even pay attention to
Yeah,
that.
so keep an eye on that now. If you guys see these harvestmen, what you formerly thought before you listened to this was a daddy longlegs, if you see them out and about, a lot of times they'll be on scat or on a dead grasshopper or mouse or something, cleaning up for us, which is really cool that God created such a simple little thing to help us, which is awesome. So I think the myth that these harvestmen are the world's most venomous spider really came from the cellar spider, because truly, if you're referring to a daddy longlegs, that's the common name for a cellar spider. They are venomous, and we get asked a lot of times about venomous spiders and which ones are venomous and which ones aren't. And you love to share this, Ben, and you surprise a lot of people with it, and that is,
Well, all spiders are venomous.
except for like a couple species.
Yeah, and there's an exception to every rule about everything that we
Right.
talk about in life. But for the most part, all spiders are venomous. And from that, locally where we live, thankfully, we only have two that really impact us. Now, we're talking on the global scale, there's so many you have to watch out
Right.
for. But here locally where we live, we only have to truly worry about two, which are the brown recluse and the black widow.
And the black widow.
Yeah. And we do have tarantulas as well. It's very painful. There's some problems with that. But in regards to that venomous bite, those are the two we're referring
Right.
to.
So if all spiders are venomous, why aren't we worried about wolf spiders and cellar spiders and all these other spiders that we come across? Why aren't we worried about them?
Well, because of their venom isn't going to cause us as many problems, and I say that loosely because we know that those two, the brown recluse and black widow, impact all of us. I don't know what reaction you might have.
Well, I
another
had
bite.
some 0.00025 rare reaction when I got bit by a brown recluse, and I was really, really sick. But most people think of that necrotic, flesh rotting spot.
Yes.
I didn't have that. I did swell up. It looked like somebody literally inserted a baseball under my skin on the back of my neck, and I was sick and on steroids, prednisone steroids, for a long, long time, trying to get my body's reaction down. But my whole body was red. I had a fever. I was restless. I couldn't hardly sit still. Had to be given medicine just to be able to sit in a chair and be still. So it lasted a long time. It was awful. So my reaction was so rare that my doctors didn't believe me that I was bitten by a brown recluse, but I literally had taken the brown recluse off of my neck after it bit me, so I knew what it was. And eventually we come across this type of rare reaction that I had. So with that being said, a venomous spider that didn't have a venom that bothered you or I could bite somebody else, and they could get a necrotic spot.
And they could, and that's why I was just saying it really is on the individual. But let's look at the cellar spider for an example. Most people that are bitten by a cellar spider or any of those little other
right.
weavers, all the kinds, the itty bitty ones, you know, when they're bitten by that, they have small fangs first off. So are they even going to be able to bite you?
Right.
Right. Are they even strong? Are their fangs even strong enough to actually pierce and inject? But even when they do, there's usually a minimal reaction unless you got some sort of infection
right.
or anything like that.
So really, with all these thousands of species of spiders being venomous, the two things that you really come across of why they don't affect humans is the first one is their venom isn't strong enough to affect a human.
Correct.
It's really just in them to subdue a tiny little insect.
Right.
Or two, their fangs are not strong enough or long enough to penetrate human skin.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time we're safe. But with that cellar spider, there is that myth or that saying that they're the most venomous spider in the world, but their fangs are too short to inject into a human. Really cool, and you guys can look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Mythbusters, they did a whole video on this, and they busted it. They tested the venom of a cellar spider versus a black widow spider. Well, they actually had a arachnologist on who did the test, and they tested it on mice, and by far the black widow venom was much more toxic than the cellar spiders was. And then they even showed, I forget which Mythbusters guy it was, I can't even hardly remember their names, but he stuck his hand in like this tube that was full of cellar spiders and kind of agitated them until he felt a little prick or a little bite from one.
And that was actually a good takeaway when I watched it was he had his hand in there, his whole arm, wiggling, kind of moving, trying to get them to bite, and they really didn't. Finally, at the end, one did, but for the most part, they didn't just attack like people think, like, oh, there's an arm, let's go get it.
Right. Yeah, and they say with like if you see a brown recluse on you that you should blow it away.
Right.
And at the moment you touch it, and that's the same thing that happened to me. I felt on the back of my neck when I reached up and touched to flick it away. That's when I got bit.
Yeah, even brown recluse, talking about they may be in your the blanket on your bed,
right?
You know, and so as the weight of that blanket's now on top of them, on top of you, that causes them
to bite.
Yeah, that blowing, that flicking away more than a smash for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So a harvestman, they're not venomous. Again, they don't have venom glands. They have a singular body. They have long, spindly legs. They only have one set of eyes. They don't have the 6 to 8. So they're not a spider. They're called the harvestmen. It was so long into my life before I learned that even now when I see one, I'll sometimes be like, oh, Daddy, harvestman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is ingrained in so many people and in me. Every adult, every kid I've ever been around has called them Daddy Longlegs. I still can't get it out of my head.
Well,
That's how
I've always known. That's what it's always been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to get some pictures and video up so people, after they listen to this, they can see exactly what we're talking about. But I have a feeling that if you're listening to this, you can picture and when you hear people calling, you know exactly what we're talking about right now.
Right. Well, and I'll give you. I just thought of this. This may work for some of you out there listening. It may not. If you've ever seen a big gray dog tick, like a dog tick.
Yeah.
If a gray dog tick had spindly legs, long spindly legs, and was brown, that's what you're seeing. That's what it would look like. That's the only way I could describe it.
That's a pretty good point. And the harvestmen's everywhere, guys. You know, in our state, in Missouri, literally, there's no place in the state you can't find it. I don't think there's any place in the U.S. you can't find it. I think you can find it actually in most of the world. And I think that goes because of their place in the ecosystem where they are cleaning up dead, nasty stuff. So,
yeah.
Well, I can't get over the story of kids running up to you because they licked the spider. So, do you think the sour apple taste? So, have you ever picked one up and kind of played with it and it kind of stinks? Which I know you won't be able to smell that now, but they kind of have this musky smell.
I don't remember that.
So
I don't.
If you've messed with them or been around them before, you may remember this, but I've always noticed the smell that they have. They actually, that's part of their defense. They put out this kind of stinky smell as their defense if they're scared. I wonder if that's what was happening, like whatever they were emitting to give that smell off. I wonder if that's what it was, that sour apple taste.
Well, who cares?
Who cares?
Who cares if it was emitting or if it was from a coyote turd?
Yeah.
We shouldn't be licking the bottom of them.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
But yeah, it definitely could be that's a secretion or whatever. But don't try that. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You don't want to get sick.
You know, there's a lot of people listening to this going, I wonder if it really tastes like sour apples.
That's why I'm saying don't do it. It isn't worth it. You can go eat a big black ant. They taste like lemon. That's much better for you. But they can bite your tongue, so be careful.
So these Harvestmen they'll play dead like a possum. They'll literally roll over and play dead. So a lot of times when you see them, like in the corner of your basement or something, this has happened to me. I'll go up and I'll be like, oh, let's get that out of here. When I grab it, it'll start kicking and thrashing. You can rip their legs off. If you throw one of their legs on the floor after you ripped off, it'll sit there and keep twitching, almost like a lizard's tail does. And the whole point of that is if something is trying to eat it, it gets distracted by the twitching leg. And
whatever time of year that they actually begin to come out, the majority of the time when I really see them, like if you go to, let's say, a campsite, they've got a big vault toilet or a big pit toilet. Like when you open it up, there'll be like sometimes hordes of Harvestmen like in the corners of them. You can clearly see the difference between them and a cellar spider. It's just very clear. Cellar spider is just so skinny. Their body is so much more narrow, and they're even smaller on the leg size most of the time.
And of course the two segments, and they're a smaller spider for sure. I will tell you that these female Harvestmen actually don't need a male to reproduce. They conduct parthenogenesis, and they can actually produce baby spiders without the male spiders. So,
spiders, Brian?
Oh my gosh, I just called it a spider.
You just got the spider on you.
See, I'm telling you, I got the spider on me. It's not a spider. It's an opaleon.
Opaleon.
And it is not a daddy long legs. It is a Harvestman.
That's right.
If we can't get it straight, we hope that you guys can at least learn from us and get it straight. But anyway, yeah, they're a cool creature. They're a scavenger. They can have babies without actually reproducing with male and female. They're going to play possum. They're going to do the detached stanky leg. And now you know what an actual daddy longlegs is. It's a little venomous spider, just like most spiders are venomous in your garage. It can't bite you. And
no, I mean the takeaway for me and why I wanted to share this, and we've talked about so many different things here, but the main point that I want to share is that a Harvestman isn't a spider, and we get into that. The kids have been taught, or maybe when you were younger, you were taught that they were the world's most dangerous spider. So my hopes were to clear that up, and I think we did.
Yeah, I was definitely taught that, and it was awesome when I learned it. So I'm glad to be sharing it with you guys, but we appreciate you listening. That is it for this episode of Myth Monday. Between now and our next episode, we hope that you get out, enjoy some time outdoors, and maybe you'll even find a Harvestman. Thank you for listening to the Meant to Be Outdoors podcast, hosted by Brian Hoffmeyer and Ben Brandell. Please help us by subscribing. Also, follow along on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.